Hi, I'm Dr. Marc Reynolds. I'm going to react, analyze, and help you sing more like the top performers across the globe. Let's learn from Sohyang performing Wind Song. I chose to use a video that was compiled by a fan that shows BTS's reaction to Sohyang because I think it's really cool and offers some really fun things to talk about. Here we go. So here at the start, not just with BTS, you're looking at the other audience members, and they're still kind of settling in. Chances are there's been a bunch of talking before this. There's been a lot of other business happening that even the audience who is watching on TV doesn't see because there's starts and stops, or it's a concert, or who knows what's going on. But this happens with every performance in that we have an audience who's coming in with a wide range of baggage, right? Whether they're tired from a long day's work, whether they're bored and been doing nothing all day, it doesn't matter. Whether they just broke up with a boyfriend or girlfriend, whether they're there for the first time with someone that they totally love, it doesn't matter. They're bringing something into that space, into that performance area that does not belong to the song, that does not belong to the world of that character, right? And that influences the performance. What I love is watching all that stuff get left behind. What I love most is a performer who can transport an audience from wherever they are to somewhere new. What I love, even in these short few seconds here, you're already seeing the audience start to change and slowly be transported away from the everyday life them into this specific moment. So I love it. We're hearing her sing with her normal style, forward placement. She really brings it forward and buzzy, really puts that app shape in back here and has the upper two smile there, especially as she goes higher. The lower range, she can keep it a little further back, a little warmer, a little more in the back. But for the most part, it's her voice. She's singing great. She's performing really simply. Nothing huge at this point. Most of the acting we could say she's doing in her face right now. Perfect. Okay, you're watching BTS here, reacting to her. What I love most is they're not trying to be snarky. They're not being mean. I'm looking at this group who has every right to think that they're all that. And if I didn't know that I was looking at BTS, I would think they were just normal, great, cool guys in the audience that are just here watching the performance. Everyday guys. Which to me says so much to them as performers, that with all the fame, with all the attention, with all that they do, that they can turn off that part of their brain to appreciate someone else's performance. That's really, really important, and it's really, really hard. That's something you can do that will help your performing today. Turn off that judging part of your brain. Just leave on the part of your brain that can appreciate and enjoy something. I see this a lot in college students. I experienced it for myself. The more we learn, the more we know, the easier it is to really pick things apart and to say everything that's wrong. Hopefully over time, what we learn is that there isn't always a right or wrong. We learn something and we think that that is the one right way to do it. And that's not always the case. We also hopefully learn with life that people are human and that there's something about just enjoying what someone else is doing, that they're offering a bit of themselves, their time, their talent, their emotions, and really being vulnerable and putting themselves out there. But what a tragedy if you've invested so much in this art form and you can't appreciate it anymore. That is miserable. That's awful. So I love watching them here and watching that they can watch this other artist and just sit there and appreciate it. I think that's exceptional. What can we learn today from BTS watching Sohyang is that if you are listening to a performance and it's not your job to critique it and analyze it, learn to turn off that part of your brain and just enjoy it for what it is. Second thing to learn is that being a good learner, being a good student, being someone who's really technical and analytical doesn't necessarily mean that you have to tear it apart and find everything that's bad or wrong with a performance. What I see in young teachers, what I've seen in myself, is the tendency to jump to everything that's wrong and rip it apart. Where in reality, it's often much more productive to focus on everything that's going right and encourage them to do more of what's right instead of ripping it down and saying what's wrong. It helps and is usually much more productive in the long term. Does that mean that there's something wrong with identifying what's not working well? No, I think there is. But it's a matter of how much time and energy we're focusing on that. If we're focusing all our time and energy on what's negative, we're going to train the person that we're working with, and often that's ourselves, to hate what we do. It's Pavlov's dogs, right? So if every time we get up and perform, we figuratively beat ourselves with a stick, are we going to want to perform? Are we going to want to practice? Are we going to want to keep doing this? No. But if instead we take the time first to appreciate and applaud what was going well, then we're going to associate performing, practicing with this positive experience. And then after we do that, then we can take a moment to identify one or two things that could be done even better. Okay, notice you can see in her dress here that she's standing in this contrapposto position. It's not equally weighted. You can see that one knee is slightly more bent. We've talked about this in previous videos, but in fact, humans are not meant to stand equally on both feet for a long time. If we're standing there for a long time, our bodies work best if we put the majority of our weight on one foot or the other. It lets the other foot rest. It also helps us ground our breath more. It actually lines up our body in a way that makes it easier to move and be expressive with our body, but also lets us breathe better. It also lines up our vocal mechanism better. Okay, notice how she kind of slides in that note and doesn't really kind of lock into that last moment. Part of that is stylistic, and part of it is something that we can kind of steal as an exercise. Try it. Try right now trying to slide up to each note. It's a really great way to warm up. It's also a really great way to learn how to stay connected through a leap, through a larger interval jump. Often when I'm hearing performers trying to hit these jumps when they're amateur, what they're doing is they're hitting one note, stopping and hitting the next, or hitting one note, pulling off airflow, then hitting the next. They're not staying connected. The best way to help yourself learn how to stay connected on these leaps and keep it consistent and easy and not to ruin that legato line is to slide between notes and then continue to slide faster and faster, keeping the feeling of stretch here as we're going up between them, not losing any sound in between, not stopping the sound, until what it's going to feel like is we're cleanly jumping from one note to the next without sliding, without hearing a slide, but it's going to feel like you're sliding there. You're keeping that stretch and connection there that you had when you did slide. This is a stylistic issue for her here, but it's a great talking point of an exercise we can use to be able to keep larger interval jumps connected and consistent. All right, see that there? Oh, and then it's just an ah right there. You see the upper two smile. You see that jaw releasing. She's again using that slide to stay connected into this new place, this higher register. Still sounds connected, gorgeous. Airflow is consistent. That's the other reason the slide is really helpful, is because if you'll keep that airflow consistent, your body will start to learn that it doesn't have to push, it doesn't have to prepare for that higher note. It can just keep that airflow consistent and allow this vocal mechanism to shift how it needs to let you to get that high note. Also want to point out here, tongues down and forward. Excellent. Okay, watching BTS here, see these things of like actively trying to show their approval. Yeah, it might be genuine. It might be just their natural reaction to watching something. More than likely, they're making a conscious effort to show their positivity. For example, for me, when I'm watching a video, it takes a lot of concentration. I am seeing and hearing so many things all at once, and there's so many thoughts going on that to actually get my face to respond, if I were to show you everything that was going on in my head and my face would be looking all kinds of crazy. Our face goes into a intense listening mode rather than an expressive, trying to show our emotions type of mode. I talk about this with my performers all the time. Are you supposed to be in a listener mode here or a talker mode? You know exactly what that looks like. You could look through a glass window at someone over dinner and you could be looking at everyone's back, but you'd still know who the talker was, who the person talking was, and who the person listening was. And you'd be able to tell if they were actively listening or just kind of passively listening. Back to if I'm watching a video, if I'm really analyzing, looking at it closely, I'm not going to be going, wow, that's amazing. That's so great. Because I'm not in active listening mode in that moment. I'm in communicating mode. So what was interesting in watching BTS here is that they were in listening mode. And then you saw a little light bulb go blink in their eyes. And they knew that people would be watching them. And so then they're going into an active speaking mode here while they're watching her. Is that rude? Is that bad? Is that not authentic or genuine? No, that's not what I intend to say. Actually, what I intend to say here is they're aware of themselves enough to know that people are watching and they have an opportunity here. How they respond is either going to make her look better or make her look worse. And by actively showing that they approve, things like, wow, thumbs up, though, that's showing these cameras like this one that's watching them that they're supporting this other artist. And to me, that says a lot about who they are as performers. They're not about tearing other people down. They're not about making other people look bad. In fact, from everything I've seen both on stage and here off stage, they're about lifting the people around them and using everything in their disposal to help the people around them. To me, that's a sign of an exceptional artist. And that's something I think we can all learn from. Okay, again, she comes down into this lower register. She lets that sound pull back a little bit. It's not as bright, it's not as resonant, it's not as forward, which lets it get softer at the end here, has this decrescendo feel. We have to be careful when we're doing that because it can start to sound flat when we pull it back. If we let that soft palate collapse, in our head we could be hearing the right fundamental pitch, but to us it'll be perceived as flat. So we have to be careful in here. Here, she's keeping that space open, that air's moving, doing lots of great stuff. Love it. Vocally, what do we learn from Sohyang? We learn that we can get all kinds of expressive sounds and tell a unique story by keeping things free of tension, relatively relaxed and still in our body without having to move a lot. Yes, moving can add to it. Moving's not bad, but we can tell a story and be expressive without having to move our body a lot by really using our face as the primary expressive tool. We also learn that by trusting these fundamental techniques of jaw release down and back, consistent airflow, open resonant space, forward placement, that we can still get a wide variety of sounds, but it's going to sound consistent. Those fundamental tools and techniques are going to allow us the freedom to do so much more than if they aren't in place and aren't working there. If you want a voice lesson or performance coaching or want me to work with you or your group to help you sing easier, perform at a consistently higher level, book a time with me at mrperformingartsstudio.com. I look forward to working with you online.